So one of the things that launched me into seeing reality, seeing myself more clearly, the absolute truth of my relationships, the absolute truth of, you can say, my spiritual condition, meaning me being more tapped into, you can say, the Christ in me, right? Being more tapped into the orientation and meaning of my life, right? Headed towards what is meaningful, heading more inward to understand and know myself, right? And being able to know myself, know my own personal uniqueness and mission and desires in that, you can say, and also heading more so into a more internal authority and love. Before that could happen, there has to be, well, in my journey, before that could happen, so you had my whole entire life up until a certain conditions in my life brought a lot of pain in my life, my relationships, right? My spiritual life or my spiritual journey at that moment or at that moment in time, and my life, what I wanted for myself, right? One thing that really kicked it off in my experience was honesty. I got to a point where things got so bad, my reaction at the time, I didn't really know at the time why, as far as how I conceptualize it and understand it today. But at the time, I just was really tired of my life, the relationship that I was in, they were fake, what I wanted for myself, where I really was spiritually, and what that even meant. And so everything for me was confusing. And so the only thing I could do at that time was to really be honest with what I really felt in the moment. And in my way around that time, the honesty that I had about at the time what I wanted, which really as time went on, it has gotten more deeper and more precise and more clear in the meaning, and more over time it has gotten more clear about what I'm really trying to do in my life and all the other things that we talked about earlier, as far as meaning and having more alignment and truly participating with God, the spirit that is in me, right? Or the light. I like to say the light. And so, but as I was saying earlier, honesty for me was the beginning of that. Because when I became more honest, and I always believed that I was an honest person, but I think I was honest as far as the things, relationships, you could say being more honest about the relationships that I was in and the actual connections that were really happening. How I got into certain relationships, how my real opinions on spirituality, and at the time being in a Christian Reformed church and all these things and some of the weight that I felt. But in saying that, I started to be honest, and then with that honesty brought consequences. And I started to really be honest in a way that relinquished me from certain responsibilities, which really took off a lot of the pressure on me, right, to perform and a lot of weight. Now, this honesty, this being honest and relinquishing certain responsibilities that I put on myself, and the performative nature of how I was operating at that time, for me, this was the beginning, because as I started to really see and be honest, I do think in those times, and I really wanted to really see the things that I was believing. At the time, it was like, is it right or wrong? But as time went on, it was like, is it really helpful for me, right? Is it really helpful? Is this supposed to be useful? But at the time, for me, honesty was the catalyst to God opening up and allowing me to see more clearly to some of the things that maybe God was trying to get me to see before that I didn't see. It's really that simple. But at that point in my life, I was ready because I was already sick of the life that I have chosen before. And so at that point, honesty was a way for me to be honest with myself and not just relinquish all the responsibility, but to really say what is really real to the people in my life and to let go some of the pressure that I felt that I put on myself. But within that, I was so really eager to really seeing, being honest and being more authentic and really wanting to see. And then along that path, God began to work through certain synchronicities, certain videos I would get recommended to me. And that will lead to certain thoughts I had about certain things for years, right? And that's how God would speak to me. And it was up to me to really be open to listening, understanding, and really comprehending, and to move further along and dropping all of the things that I've identified with that was clouding my mind, that was taking up my time, so that I can move more in alignment with who I truly am, and I can be in a different mode of being more self-aware. And so one thing I want to say to anybody, maybe for you, it's time for you to be honest. Now, in my experience, for me, that really looked different for me. And I also was really patient with myself. I didn't have all the answers, but I was willing to live in an honest way. It meant yes, mine meant no. I was not doing this. I'm not going to do this. But what am going to do for myself? And for me, it took me years for me to really get to a place where I know where I'm going, because it was so many things that I had to unlearn. And so for anybody out there who is going through things in your life, you may be confused, a lot of pressure in your life, and being as though this is a channel talking about spirituality and the journey, and specifically if you're going through a religious kind of confusion, maybe it's time for you to start being honest. What do you really feel? How do you really want to live? I think that could be the beginning for you, but it was for me, because I think it does start with your actual life, the life that you have chosen up until that point. Why did I make all these choices? So now the honesty is like the life that I built, that I've chosen, the life that I've built, that I have chosen for myself is not what I really want. What do I want? How do I want to relate with God better? Right now, well, at that time, for me, it was, I'm just so performative in church. And it was all intellectual. It was all propositional. And so for me, while my actual life, my lived experience, and my relationships were going downhill. And so for anybody out there that's sick and tired of being sick and tired, maybe for you, for me, honesty with a level, for me, responsibility for the choices that I'm going to make. Because for me, it was being honest, and then there were consequences to that, right? And I had to weigh the things and decisions that I was making and how that impacted other people, and looking at the consequences and seeing those things honestly. And then once that happened, I was able to see more clearly. And then as that happened, God was able to bring certain people in my life or recommend certain videos that really opened up my eyes to really seeing clearly. And so maybe for you, being honest could be the start of your own journey. Or maybe you already have been walking in a honesty and you're still learning, you're still exploring, right? But that's my story. And so if this is useful, let me hear your comment in the comment section. See you in the next video. Peace.